turn this back on. And I'll take the calendar. Oh, by the way, my wife came back. Oh, the dog was so happy. Okay, so the first question, like I told you, you're going to get 2 points. You got to write the equation line and slope-intercept form. So step one, again, quizzes are open, no, tests are not. You can use this on your quiz. So everything you're about to see, you have access to while you take your quiz at, we'll do it at 10 o'clock. So we have 20 minutes to do 2 problems. Step one, you got to find the slope. Because you have 2 points, you're going to go slope equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. It doesn't matter which x and y you start with, but wherever you start in the numerator, that's what you got to start with in the denominator. So, which y do you want to start with, the 4 or the negative 4? So if I start with this positive 4, this 4 minus, and this was a mistake that your class made, whenever you're going to subtract, the minus is built in, you're going to subtract the other y coordinate, which is a negative 4, put it in parentheses, minus a negative 4. And they didn't, so they messed up that answer. Over, if you started with this y, you got to start with this x, 12, minus that x is a 7. So we get now 4 plus 4 over 5. So the slope is 8 over 5. Okay. Yeah, 12 minus 7 is 5. Okay. Now, when I do the answer key, I will do the slope both ways. Because some of you will start with 4 and some others will start with negative 4. So I will always go and do the slope both ways. So just to show you it doesn't matter. If I start with that y, negative 4, minus this y, which is positive 4, over this, now I'm going to start with this x, positive 7, minus this x, which is minus 12. So I don't use parentheses because I'm going to subtract no matter what. But I'm subtracting positive 4, so I don't need to put parentheses. I'm subtracting 12, so I don't need to put parentheses. Negative 4 minus 4 is negative 8. 7 minus 12 is negative 5. Simplified, a negative over a negative is a positive. And the fraction doesn't reduce, it's 8/5. If it did reduce, reduce it. If the fraction reduces right there, reduce it, simplify it. If you ended up with a slope like 24 over 18, don't work the rest of the problem with 24 over 18. This is greatest common factor is a 6. 6 times 4 over 6 times 3. This slope is 4/3. Use 4/3. Okay. Because your final answer has to be simplified anyway, so why not work with the simplified version? Okay. Right. So step 1, find the slope. Step 2, is that a special case? No, it's not 0. It's not under 5. Okay. So step 3, you're supposed to write the equation in slope-intercept form. So that's what I'm going to write down. I write down, it's like having the picture of the puzzle out in front of you as you start to put the pieces in. And the first piece that you found was the slope, 8 over 5. So we plug in 8 over 5. X plus b. So now you have to find one more piece of the puzzle. You got to figure out what B is. To figure out what B is, you need to plug something in for X and Y, and then you can solve for B. These are X's and Y's that are on your line. Here's an X and a Y, and here's an X and a Y. So you just need to pick either this X and Y and plug it in and solve for B, or use this one. Again, it won't matter. You'll get the exact same answer for B. So I'm going to show you both. Okay. And the reason why I'm going to show you both is I'm going to show you two different techniques. The first one, I'll use this one, 12, 4. Use 12, 4, which means I'm going to let X equal 12 and Y is going to equal 4. Now, when I do a problem on the board, I always write down what I'm about to do, because sometimes people aren't paying attention and they look up and they go, where did those things come from? When I write them down, they can look up and say, oh, that's what they do. Okay. But it's also a good indicator for myself to make sure I plug them into the right places. I see students plug the 12 in where the Y goes, and plug the 4 in where the X goes, because they're not paying attention to what they're doing. So when I write it down, I know exactly where it's going to go. Going in for Y is the 4 equals 8 over 5 times the X, which is now a 12 times 12. And I'm solving for B. Okay. This is where I ask my Math 103 students, who loves fractions? Nobody raises their hand. If one person raises their hand, I call them a line. So you don't want to deal with fractions, because right now, nothing reduces. I would look and say, can you reduce 8 fifths times 12? No, this is 12 over 1 times 8 over 5. So this is 4 equals 8 times 12. It's 96 over 5 plus B. So you would subtract 96 over 5 from both sides. If you don't want to deal with the fractions, you can undo the fractions when you're working an equation. And all it takes to undo fractions, you multiply every term by the least common denominator. See, the reason why you have fractions is because you have denominators. Denominators means it's division, 96 divided by 5. You undo division with multiplication. So to undo 96 divided by 5, you would multiply by 5. If you multiply one thing by 5, you got to, it's the Oprah, you got to multiply everybody by 5. Everybody gets multiplied by 5, and that will undo my fractions. So I multiply that by 5, this one by 5, and don't forget this one by 5. 5 times 4 is 20 equals. The reason why I'm multiplying 96 fifths times 5 is so the 5 reduce. And all I have now is 96 plus 5b. No more fractions. No more fractions. So now I just subtract 96 from both sides. 20 minus 96 is negative 76 equals 5 times b. And then to solve for the b, because that's what we're missing right here, divide by 5. And b equals negative 76 over 5. So the equation would be y equals 8 over 5 times x minus 76 over 5. And again, no decimals, make sure everything's rounded to lowest terms. And do yourself a favor, just leave it as an improper fraction. You don't need or want to convert it to a mixed number, because there's another calculation. What if you make that calculation incorrectly, changing it to a mixed number, when you had it right as an improper? So just leave it 76 over 5. Now, if I chose to use the other ordered pair, I'm going to have to get the same B because they're on the same line. You don't have to show both, by the way. You don't have to, you just got to give me one. So if I use 7, -4, that means I'm going to let the x equal 7 and the y is a -4. So -4 is equal to 8/5 times 7 plus b. So again, it doesn't reduce. 8 this times 7 is -4 equals 56/5 plus b. This time I'm going to work with the fractions. So to solve for b, I would have to subtract 56/5 from both sides. And so b is going to equal -4 minus 56/5. Now watch. When you subtract fractions, you need a common denominator. Right now, that's -4/1. So for a 1 and a 5, the least common denominator is going to be a 5. Don't forget this first fraction is a negative. So it's a negative something minus something else. To change this 1 and make it a 5, you have to multiply the first fraction by 5/5. 5 times 1 will give you 5 down here, and 5 times 4 will give you -20 in the numerator. So now, 20/5 is the same as 4. It's an equivalent fraction, but it has the correct denominator. You don't need to change that one because it already has a 5. So now you have a -20 and a -56. -20 minus 56 more is -76/5. Same y-intercept. Same exact answer. So it doesn't matter which order pair you pick when you solve them for b. It doesn't matter what order you subtract the things in, which x1, y1 you start with, which x2, y2 you start with. But what does matter is if I choose to start the numerator with this y4, then I have to start the denominator with this x12. If I choose to start with -4 in the numerator, I have to start the denominator with 7. That's what you use slope. Okay, so that's the first question of today's quiz. Again, you don't have to do, I did basically what I would do on answer sheet, I do it both ways because that way, if you do it, this one and that one, I can grade yours and see all the work that I would want to see, and if you did the other way, I can see yours. So, okay, the last question. You only are doing one of these 3 possibilities. Determine whether the pair of lines are parallel, perpendicular, or unique. Okay, you gotta show appropriate work to support your answer. Okay, only one of these, so you're either gonna get, you're either going to get a parallel set of lines, you're going to get a perpendicular set of lines, or you're going to get the answer is going to be neither. The lines are parallel if the slopes are equal. So if you end up with equal slopes, you got parallel lines. The lines are perpendicular if the slopes are opposite, one positive, one negative, one positive, opposite signs, and reciprocal. They got to flip. So if one is 2/3, the other one would be -3/2. Opposite and reciprocal for perpendicular. And if it's not parallel, if it's not perpendicular, the answer is neither. Okay? But the bottom line is, what's the work you got to show? Find the slopes. Find the slope of line 1 and line 2, compare. Find the slope of line 3, line 4, compare. Find the slope of line 5 and line 6, compare. Here we go. And they'll be written side to side. They won't be stacked like this, and have a nicer room to work. Because that's the first thing I'm going to do is write it side to side. Line 1 is 3x minus 2y equals 38. And line 2 is equals 2x minus 3y equals negative 3. That's that. We're going to go right into the next question. So we're move it over just a little bit. Line 1 is 3x minus 2y equals 38. And line 2 is 2x minus 3y equals negative 38. And I need to check to see if I messed up, because I think one of our missing people, I'm supposed to be setting the live link, is absent this week. If you are absent and you want to be in class live via Zoom, I need an email every day that you're going of the class, so I remember to send it to you. Otherwise, you can always just watch the YouTube, but if I don't see it, it's out of my mind, because I've got 3 other classes that might be doing the same thing. Okay, where is it? All right. So to find the slope, put it in slope-intercept form. Solve for y. So to solve this for y, we're going to subtract 3x from both sides. Now, the best way to make sure you line it up with the slope is put your x before your constant. So when I write down this next part, don't forget you're bringing down. It's a negative 2y. So negative 2y equals, write your x term first. Your x term is a negative 3x. Your constant is a positive 38. So on the left-hand side, you have a negative 2y left over. On the right-hand side, you have a negative 3x and a positive 38. And then remember, you want y by itself. So now to get this y is being multiplied by negative 2. Everybody gets divided by negative 2. So the negative 2 is reduced, and there's positive y equals negative over a negative is a positive. And that reduces, that simplifies, that's 3 over 2. X, a positive over a negative is a negative. 38 divided by 2 is 19. So the slope of this first line the slope of line 1 is 3 over 2. That's just m sub 1. Now, slope of line 2. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. Because again, I'm trying to solve for the y. So I subtract 2x from both sides. That leaves negative 3y on the right, on the left, negative 3y equal to, on the right, negative 2x, and then a minus 38. And then you divide, because it's multiplied by negative 3y. Everybody gets divided by negative 3. So our positive y is equal to a negative over a negative is a positive. So that simplifies already to 2/3 times x. A negative over a negative, that's a positive. 38 over 3 doesn't simplify, so that's just 38 over 3. And the slope of the second line is positive 2/3. So they're not equal, so they're not parallel. They are reciprocal, but are they opposite? No, they're not different sides. So they're not opposite and reciprocal, so they're not perpendicular. So it's neither. And you would write line, or basically you would write just neither, because verify work because slopes are not equal, or you can just write up and recip. That's right. So opposite, equal, they're not parallel. Opposite reciprocal means they're not perpendicular. Line 3x minus 2y equals negative 38. Line 4, 38 plus 3x equals positive 2y. And as you can see, it's not just going to be given to you in standard form. I've got x's and y's in all sorts of different places. So again, the bottom line is y equals mx plus b. Just get y by itself. I don't care where it's at, but just get y by itself. And that if it bothers you where it's at, you can always flip it. Here, this is good old standard form. So you just got to get this y by itself. So we subtract 3x. That's a negative 2y equals a negative 3x and a negative 38. And again, it's so important that you bring that negative downward. Then everybody gets divided by negative 2. And there's our positive y. Negative over negative is a positive, so that's a positive 3 over 2 times x. A negative over a negative is a positive, so that's a plus 92. So the slope of line 3 is 3 over 2. This is where I messed up. So over here, you have 3x and your constant, and over here you have y, just y. Remember, you just want y by itself, mx plus b. To just get y by itself, you would just divide by 2, because that's the only thing happening to y right now. So if I just divide by 2, everybody gets divided by 2. 38 over 2 is 19. A positive over positive, that's a positive. This is 3 over 2x, 3 over 2 times x. And then equals 2 over 2 is just, there's my y. Now, I know we like left to right, y equals mx plus b. So now this is called the reflexive property. Sorry, not reflexive. This is symmetric property. The symmetric property says if A equals B, then B equals A, you can flip the order. So that could just trade sides. Y equals, and then the commutative property says I can trade places when it's addition. Put 3 over 2 times x, and that's a positive 19. Okay, this is where I messed up. I'll show you that. So the slope of line 4 is positive 3 over 2. What I wasn't paying attention to was that the y-intercepts of these are equal. So technically, the slopes are equal, yes. So my intention was this. This is my intention. Because the slopes are equal, and this is what you want to put. Since, and you can just say, the slope of line 3 is equal to the slope of line 4. Then, and you can just write it like this. Line 3 is parallel. There's a symbol for parallel. Line 3 is parallel to line 4. Or you can write out the word parallel. But since the slopes are equal, the lines are parallel. But what I messed up was, yeah, the slopes are equal, but they have the exact same y-intercept. So in order to be parallel, they're not supposed to intersect at all. Because the y-intercepts are the same, they go through the exact same infinite number of points. They're the same line. So what this is called is these two lines coincide. They have an infinite number of shared points. Even though they're supposed to be equal, that's because you don't want to say one on top of each other. They're the same line. No, I have a symbol for that. They just happen to be written in different ways. And again, that's the problem. When you have y equals mx plus b, you get exactly one equation. One final way, when it's all nice and simplified, one final answer for y equals mx plus b universal. But when you have standard form, all you got to do is do a little manipulation or multiply everybody by 2. It's different numbers, but still they're the same line. And you don't know it until you get y by itself. Okay. So I promise that is not going to be the issue. Not saying it's going to be parallel, but I'm saying it's not going to be a problem on the list. I didn't pay attention to the y-intercept, right? Last one. I'm going to move it over so I can see this one. This guy. Well, I've got line 5. Is 96 minus 8y equals 5x. And line 6 is 8x minus 60 equals 5y. So let's find this one. On this first one, just to get this y by itself, we're going to put the 96 over on the right-hand side. That's a positive 96, so you subtract 96 from both sides. And again, it's a negative 8y. So subtract or bring down the negative 8y equals positive 5x minus 96. And then to get positive y, every term gets divided by -8. You get divided by -8, you get divided by -8, and you get divided by -8. So there's positive y equals, now, a positive divided by a negative is going to be a -5/8 times x. A negative over a negative, that's a positive. 8 goes into 96 12 times. So the slope of line 5 is -5/8. Want to make sure you remember that -5/8 is exactly the same as -5 divided by +8. And look where I got it from. It was +5 over -8. So that would be the same as a +5 over a -8. As if there's one negative in your fraction, then your fraction's a negative fraction. When I graph lines, when I have a negative slope, I will always put my negative in the numerator. So that means my rise is up or down, and my run is always to the right. So just keep that in mind. Now, there. We want y by itself. Well, over here, you have just a 5y. So to get y by itself, you would just need to divide everybody by 5. So I'm just going to go ahead and divide everybody by 5, like I did over here on this last one. The y was already by itself, and then I flipped it. So this is +8/5 x minus 60 divided by 5 is 12 equals, and there's y. Now we prefer to see y equals mx plus b, so put y on this side. On the right side, 8/5 x and then minus 12. And the slope of line 6 is +8/5. So taking it through the possibilities, they're not equal, so they're not parallel. They are opposite. One is positive, one's negative. Are they also reciprocals? Yes. So since they're opposite and reciprocals, these two lines are parallel. So since slope 5 and slope 6 are opposite and reciprocal, then, are you going to say line 5, and this is the symbol for perpendicular, is perpendicular to line 6. Or you can write it out. Spelling counts because the word perpendicular is spelled one with quotes. That's what I'm looking for. You're just going to do one of those. Huh? Not a degree. Oh. Did you not get the email? Or see the email from? Yeah, that's why I sent this out yesterday. That way you could look at it beforehand. We can do it again. We do it today. That's okay. We can still get it, but yeah. I'm not going to ask you all three because that would be a lot of time. I'll quiz. You can just guess everywhere. I mean, it's either going to be parallel, perpendicular, or an equal. Okay. And then one like the first. So open note, that's what you get to use, as well as your homework or whatever else you know. Okay, let me get the counter going. to 61. Median salary, well, wrong one. Use graph utility to graph the equations using each viewing window. Describe the differences in the graph. Okay, so what they want you to do is, let me pull up the graph and calculator. We're going to punch in So you go to your equations and you want to type in y equals 0.25x minus 2. So 0.25 and then x and then a minus and a 2. And then you go to window, and they want you to do the graph 3 different times. Describe the differences in what those graphs look like. Okay. They first want you to take a look at the graph using this as your minimum. So when I go to window, and I set my x minimum at -1, and then my x maximum to 9. Oh, come on.
We basically type all rows of each what it says.
Say again?
So basically we type each of those numbers on each of those.
Right. So I want to go -1. And then I want +9 for the max. My x scale is supposed to be 1. My y minimum is -5. -5. Y maximum, they want +4. And my y scale is 1. Okay. So what that means is when it graphs, you're going to get your XY axis like this. The X minimum, technically, the X minimum on the window is going to be here at -1, all the way to 9 on the right. The Y minimum is -5 down here. So technically this is higher. And that's going to go all the way up to a 4 up there. The X scale, that means it's going to put a little notch at every 1 unit. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9. And on the Y scale, it's going to be a little notch every 1 unit. So -1, -2, -3, -4, then -5. +1, +2, +3, +4. That's what it's going to show you in the window when you set the window to those units, to that framework. Let's see how good I got this. I don't know how good it is. So then I hit graph. Well, not too bad. I wasn't too far. If they want you to compare the differences in the graphs, then you either have a photographic memory or an eidetic memory. Or you might want to sketch this out. So the first one, not to scale. The y-intercept here is, oh, I wonder what the y-intercept, y equals mx plus b. We have y equals 0.25 x minus 2. So the y-intercept is right here at -2. What's the slope?
25, 125.
So what's that as a fraction though? Because I don't want to graph decimals. How much is 25% out of, or 25 cents out of a dollar? Which is a fraction of 1 over. So you go up 1 and over 1, 2, 3, 4. Up 1 over 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, the x-intercept is going to be right there at 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, right there, 8. Okay. It's amazing how lines work. And then over here is that 9. Oops, not that far over, about here, 9. So that's my, now compare it. So there's my first one. And then change the window. Now they want a window. Go back to window. X minimum is -5. Okay, 5. Okay. X maximum is all the way to 10. Okay. The x scale is still a 1. The y minimum is -3. And the y maximum is +4. Y scale is still 1. Okay. So -5. Now let's do the y's first. So this is -3 to a +4 there. And this is a -5 all the way to 10. X-axis probably right about here. Here. -3 there, +4 there. And 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Oops. 1, 2, 4. Remember the y-intercept was at here -2. And went 1 up 1 and over 1, 2. Oh, shoot. Gotta go all the way to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4. 10 up 1 over here. The line should look a little bit like that. Let's see how close I can get. I don't know how close I'm going to get, but that's what I think it's going to look like. Used to be really difficult. Oh my God. Oh crap. Missed it by so much. Start off with it. My axis is all right in place, but doing the scale is always rough on me. Here's what I should have done. I got the scale for the y's good, but here's what I should have done on my x's to move the text. You know that's a 10, that's a -5. So right here, estimate. Now, let me do this because I don't want you to think I'm cheating or anything. So, and this is something we do in Math 4A. In Math 4A, the trig class, you have to, basically cut things in half. One oscillation of a sine curve is from 0 radians to 2 pi radians. So on the x-axis, it goes from 0 to 2 pi. So in the middle would be 1 pi. And halfway would be 1/2 pi over 2. And halfway would be pi over 4. You cut them into halves, half, half, half. 10 halfway, that's where my 5 should have been. And then I know that this is going to be 7.5, so 6, 7, that should have been my 8, there's my 9. And then 1, and my 2, and my 3, and my, well, that's not that, that's my 4. So up 1 over 4, right about here, up 1 over 4, there's my 8. And it should have been a little bit more like that. That's what it should be. Okay. I don't have an idea. Okay. I have trouble running my kids. I have 2. There's 6 kids in my own family. So I'm the last out of the 6. So whenever, I got in trouble, it was Ramon, Frank, Albert, Jim. Fine, nothing. I'm 8 years younger than the last one. Why don't you start with the youngest one to work with? I should be the one that you remember because everybody else got a house. I'm the only one who can get in trouble. Go ahead. Anyway. Difference in the rest. Okay. You look at this picture, the difference in my 2 graphs. Now, the problem is I didn't draw the last one to scale. But you can see that it's moved over and it's gonna look, it's the exact same equation, but because of the window, it's going to look different. It's gonna look less steep. It's gonna look steeper. It's not gonna look the same. That's what they're getting at. Okay. That's what they're getting at. You have more x-axis here to work with. Here you have, you have less x-axis because this only goes to -1. This has 15 to cover. So it's going to be a little less steep than this one would be. It's still 8. Oh yeah, it has to be. Because the slope is 1 over 4. The slope is 1/4. So if you start here at -2, up 1 over 4, you're at 4, -1. As you go up 1 over 4, you're now at 8, 0. Always. Now remember, to find the y-intercept, the y-intercept is always where the y-coordinate is a 0, because it's on the y-axis. So if I let the y equal 0, for any kind of function, for a linear, for a quadratic, for cubics, if you let the y equal 0 and solve for x, so +2 + 2, 2 is equal to 0.25x, divide by, we're talking about the y. I just screwed this up. Yeah, I'm solving it. Over here, on the x-axis, the y is 0. Over here would have been like x equals 0. If I let x equal 0, if you let x equal 0, then you just get the y-intercept -2. Okay. If I plug in 0, 25 cents times 0 is 0, 0 minus 2. That's how you get the y-intercept, let x equal 0. Let y equals 0, and you're going to get the x-intercept. Divide by a quarter. How many times does a quarter go into $2? 8 times. There's 8 quarters in a dollar. When you think of decimals, think money. 4 quarters and, 8 quarters and $2. I said it was I need to not talk so quickly. Either that or I need to like start scheduling like later classes or something. But yeah. If I schedule my class a little bit later, man, no, I tend to get a little, actually, I'm less sharp later. It's like, oh no, you gotta be kidding. How could you do that? All right, so that's 61. And we're still going all the way to 77. 63 are the lines. So you're not given equations, you're just given a pair of more pairs. Are they parallel, perpendicular, or neither? So you have 2 points. Find the slope that goes through this line. Find the slope that goes through that one. And then compare. Are they equal, opposite, reciprocal, or neither? Okay, that's 63, 65. And then you guys, unfortunately, you have to deal with my frustrations that I feel about Math 103. Because in Math 103, 67 through 75 happens all the time. In Math 103, I tell you, you're going to have to write the equation of the line through a point that's parallel or perpendicular to some other line. Now, just like you guys, they get a review sheet that is just like the test with basically a practice test with different questions that we go over the day of proof. So there's going to be a question on there. It's going to be one or the other, parallel, perpendicular, but they're done the same way. Then, in the next chapter, we do it again. I tell them if you get it right now, then you better for the next chapter. And for the next chapter, the first quiz, they'll have the same problem. And no matter how many times we do it, the quizzes are open. No, it's like, I'm sticking. I promise I'm going to give you one like 67 or 69 or 71, 73 and 75. You better be able to do it in sleep. We'll talk about that in a second. But which one do you want to see out of 67, 69, or 71? I don't care which. Okay. Already the fractions. That's all right. I like fractions because they're less than one. Things less than one don't scare me.
Is that like a class that like taught super fractions?
Yeah, we don't teach anymore. It's called arithmetic. That's right. My arithmetic classes were always like 40. Because what happens when, and I would say probably 60% were students that are coming back to school after 10 to 15 years being in the workforce, trying to come back and make their life better. But the others were just fresh out of high school that somehow just beat the system, or someone just passed them along. Because they couldn't add like 3-digit number to a 3-digit number, could not add, carry the numbers, or subtract, long division. And one of the biggest things they can't do, the reason why they can't do it is because they're not neat. They don't line up the ones in the ones place, the tens in the tens place. They don't line those up, and so they're trying to add a 10 to a 100. That doesn't work. Right. So we want 2 things. We need parallel and we need perpendicular. Okay. 69. A, which is parallel. And B, we're going to be perpendicular. And goes through point. Negative 2/3, 7/8. And the equation of the line is 3x plus 4y equals. Step one, you've always got to find slope. That's where it starts. Always starts when you need slope. For the parallel line, my parallel line through that point is going to have an equal slope to that line. My perpendicular line is going to have an opposite and reciprocal slope to that line. So if these two equations rely on that slope to decide what their slopes are going to be, the first thing you better do is find the slope of 3x plus 4y equals 7. Subtract 3x. And we get 4y equals negative 3x and a plus 7. Everybody gets divided by 4. So the given line, negative 3 over 4 times x plus 7 over 4. The given line has a slope of negative 3 over 4. So what is the slope for my parallel line? Exactly the same, negative 3 over 4. And what will the slope for my perpendicular line? Positive 4. To write the equation of the line that I want, I need slope. I need basically the slope. I now have the slope for the two lines that I'm going to make. I am now done with this equation. I don't need it anymore. And this is where I tell you a little quick pathetic story of my own life. This is exactly like my sophomore year in high school. This one girl around November started paying attention to me because she wanted to go to winter formal. So sure, we went to winter formal. Day after winter formal, never talked to me again. She got what she wanted, just like we got what we needed from this line over here. That's the slope. Now we don't need it anymore. So we're tossing it away like she tossed me away. Okay, of course it's winter formal, so I also gave her a Christmas present. She got me nothing. Anyway, that slope, not a special case. So now we're going to do y equals mx plus b. Remember, this is the ordered pair this is the only ordered pair we can choose from. We have to use negative 2/3, positive 7/8. So that means we plug in the slope, negative 3 over 4. X plus b. And now we're going to let x equal negative 2/3. And y is going to be 7/8. 7/8 goes in here, equals negative 3 over 4 times x, which is parentheses, negative 2/3. And then solving for b plus b. Let's see if something simplifies. So this is 7/8 equal to a negative times a negative, we get a positive. Oh, look, 3 goes into 3 and reduces. This is going to be a positive 2 over 4. Well, 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes into 4 2 times. When the 3's reduced, 3 goes into 3 up here once, 3 goes into 3 down here, you have a 1. So what we have in the numerator is 1 times 1 over 2 times 1. We have 1/2 plus b. Now, if you just went ahead and multiplied, negative 3 over 4 times negative 2 over 3, you would get a positive, negative times negative is positive. In the numerator, 3 times 2, that's a 6. 4 times 3 is a 12. 6 over 12, 1/2. Simplify. Simplify. Now, you can work with fractions, but I choose not to. Let's get rid of the fraction. The least common denominator for an 8 and a 2 is an 8. The first number, the 2 and 8 both go into equally is an 8. So I'm going to multiply everybody by an 8. Don't forget to multiply everybody, that includes the b. So right here, 8 times 7 over 8, the 8 reduced, you just have a 7, equal 2 goes into 8 4 times, so this is 4 plus 8b. And subtract 4. 7 minus 4 is 3, equal to 8b. And then divide everybody by 8. So for the parallel line, parallel line, the missing b is 3/8. So for the parallel line, the equation is going to be, this is 3 over 8. So y equals negative 3 over 4x plus 3/8. That's the parallel. And then do the same thing again for the perpendicular. Right, on the y equals mx plus b. And again, I do this every time because it's a puzzle and I'm putting in my pieces. I got my 4/3, plugging that in from slope. The 4/3 going into m. And then I still don't know what b is. So now I want to plug in an x and a y, and the only x and y that I know of is this one right here. So I'm going to let the x equal negative 2/3 again. And the y is 7 over 8. So 7/8 is equal to positive 4/3 times x is negative 2/3 plus. So the difference here, 7/8. Positive times a negative, that's a negative. The difference here is nothing reduces. 3 does not go into 4 or the 2. That 3 doesn't go into 4 or 2. So you just multiply straight across. 4 times 2, so we get negative 8 over 3 times 3 is 9. So now you either add 8 over 9 to both sides, or I'm going to multiply by the least common denominator. The first thing that an 8 and a 9 go into is a 72. So everybody gets multiplied by 72. Well, we need to multiply the units. Now, the reason why I'm doing the 72 is to have the denominator reduce. So this 8 goes into that 72 9 times. 9 times 7, 63. equals a positive times a negative will be a negative. 9 goes into 72. 8 times negative 8, that's a negative 64. Plus 72 times b. And then you add 64 to both sides. And so 63 plus 64 is 127, equal to 72 times b. Divide those sides by 72. If it reduces, you gotta reduce it. So let's think. The only thing that goes into 72, 8 times 9. The only thing that goes into 9 is a 3, 3 times 3. The only thing that goes into 8 are 2s, 2 and 4, so 2s. Well, 127 is odd, so you can't divide by 2. 2 is not a common factor. 3. You know the divisibility rules. If it's even, you can divide by 2. The rule for 3, if the sum of the digits is divisible by 3, you can divide the whole thing by 3. So for instance, if you have 4,383, well, let's do something different. 87. No, 86. 4 plus 3 is 7. 7 plus 8 is 15. 15 plus 6 is 21. These 4 digits add up to 21. Since 3 goes into 21, I can divide that by 3. Now that's the rule for 3. The rule for 4. If the last 2 digits is divisible by a 4, you can divide the whole thing by 4. 86 is not divisible by 4, so you can't divide by 4. Okay? What's that? No, if this was 88, then I can divide by 4. But now I can't divide by 3. What about 84? 84 is fine. 4 goes in 84. If it's divisible by 5, it's got to end in a 5 or 0. 6. Well, 6 is 2 times 3. So it's got to be divisible by 2 and divisible by 3. So it's even and 3 works. So the last thing I have, well, there you go. The last one. It's even and 3 worked. So I can actually divide that by a bigger number, 6. 7 is too complicated. It's easier to just check on your calculator instead of going to even. The rule for 9. If the rule for 9 is just like a 3. If the sum of the digits is divisible by 9, you can divide the whole thing by 9. See, that's only divisible by 3 because it has 21. But if I made that 83, 15, 18. Now, I can divide by 3 because it goes into 3 goes into 18. But 9 goes into 18. So I can pick a bigger number and divide by 9. Divide by 10 has to end in 0. Now over here, we already ruled out that it's not 2. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 plus 7 is 10. That's not divisible by 3. So that's lowest terms. Because if it was going to reduce, you would have to have a common factor. The only thing you could reduce was 72 is 9 times 8. So it has to be a factor of a 3, and this is only 2 times 2 times 2. It has to be a 2s or 3s. Since 2 or 3 does not go to 127, you're done. That's my intercept. Whoops, not there. We're here. So y equals for perpendicular. Y equals positive 4/3 x plus 127 over 72. Hertz. I'm going to double check. Negative 3/4 x plus 3/8 4/3 1.7 over 7. Okay. Like I said, you should be able to do this one, 73 or 75. So which one do you want to see, 73 or 75?
I think he's mixed up and stuff.
No, mixed numbers, nah. Mixed numbers, you want to borrow a cup of sugar. You go next door. These two are the same. All three of these are the same. 5/2 is the same as 2 goes to 5, 2 and 1/2 times. And that's the same as 2.5.
Can you explain that again?
5 divided by 2. 2 goes into 5 twice with 1 left over. So 2.5.
Oh,
Mixed number.
it's basically division.
Yeah, because a fraction is division. 2 goes into 5. 2 times, they give me 4. You subtract. 2 can't go into 1, that's your remainder. So you put the remainder over the divisor. 2.5. If you go next door and you want to borrow a cup of sugar, you don't say, can I have 5 halves of a cup of sugar? They're gonna look at you like you're crazy. Can I have 2.5 cups of sugar? You never say, I ran 5 halves of a mile. I ran 2.5 miles of it. How much change do I get? You get 5 halves of $1. No, you get $2.50. So in certain contexts, yeah, we would use these other representations. But when you're doing calculations, you're gonna have to convert to improper fractions to add, subtract, multiply, divide. So let's just leave it as an improper fraction in lowest terms. Because if you take your improper fraction, what if you make a mistake? You have the right answer, you go to convert it, and now it's wrong. Okay. All right. So 73 or 75. Pick. All right. Parallel and perpendicular to the given line, to the given point. Through the point 3, -2. Parallel and perpendicular to x minus 4 equals 0. All right. Step 1, you always got to have slope, but timeout. Slope. Parallel, slopes are equal, perpendicular, opposite, and reciprocal. But when you go to do the work to find the slope of the other line, you don't prove it, you don't have a y. When you only have an x, it's a special case. And when you, number 75, you don't have an x, you only have a y. If you only have an x, you only have a y, those are special cases. The special cases are the horizontal or the verticals. Okay. So how do you know which is which? Well, first of all, horizontal and verticals, it's not x minus 4, it's what does x equal. So put the 4 on the other side, you end up with x equal 4. When x is by itself, remember x looks like it is a B that's been put upside down on top of an upside down B, and B stands for vertical. So x by itself, this is a vertical line. The slopes of vertical lines are undefined. So if you try to do y equals mx plus b, you can't plug undefined into an equation. So when you have the special cases, the best thing that you draw a picture. Unless you know exactly what it's going to be, draw a picture. If you want partial credit in case you get it wrong, I have nothing to grade unless I see something that you did. So if all you're doing is, here's my answer, and there's no work to show, I got no partial credit for it. So, A, parallel, B, perpendicular. So, now picture. Just a quick sketch. 3, -2 is in quadrant 4. Now, first of all, I'm going to graph this line. X equals 4. Vertical. It's a vertical at 4. So right here, 4. Straight up and down. The point 3, -2, 3 over, and then you go down to 3, -2 right there. So I'm going to draw a parallel line. Will I be drawing a horizontal or will I be drawing a vertical to be parallel to the green line? Horizontal or vertical if it's parallel to the green?
Vertical.
It has to be vertical. So to get this right, visually, it would be a vertical line like this. So therefore, I know my parallel line is vertical. And I need to remember that when I have vertical lines, it's x equal to a constant. So all I gotta write is, what's the x that this is going through? These x's are always 3. And that's it. There's my equation. That's all you gotta put. Now, if you just put x equals 3 because you can see it in your head, that's fine. Okay, if you can do that in your head, I'm okay. But if you get it wrong and I don't have anything, because I can't grade it in your head, picture helps. And then same thing over here. X equals 4 is still this one over here. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's still this one, like this. They still want 3, -2 over 3, down 2. Down here. As you notice, I labeled these guys. 3, -2. And then perpendicular to the green line. So is it horizontal or will it be vertical? It's horizontal. When I draw that, there's my perpendicular. My perpendicular is horizontal. And when you have a horizontal line, it's y, because h is a little bit like an upside down y. So they go together. Y equals a constant. And on this line, what does the y always equal that keeps it horizontal? -2. And that's all you put. I get students that will put y equals the 3. The 3 is the x coordinate. I can't be the 3. But that's what they get mixed up because they don't draw a picture. All right. Open note, please use a pencil if you can. That would be wunderbar. Where I put my scissors. In my pocket. Make sure you put your first and last name. You never know when I have like 3 or 4 Billies. You don't need to put, Monday, Wednesday, I already got that figured out. And when you're done, you can turn it in and you're finished.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I take roll on quizzes and tests. I don't lecture. You're done when you turn.